are here in Columbiana, and with me is Grady Carden with Carden Legal Services. And thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with us. And we're going to talk a little bit about estate planning and the importance of estate planning. But first, I thought it would be good to take a minute to talk about the uniqueness of your practice, and because I can see where you've really focused on both customer service as well as affordable legal guidance.
Yeah, first of all, appreciate you having me out today and to be able to spend a few minutes talking about what I consider to be a very important matter. And I have purposefully sort of set my practice up to be a little different than what I think a lot of lawyers do. I try to represent myself to be sort of the non-stuffy lawyer, if you will. And specifically in the area of estate planning, I do think that it's one of those things that's so important for people to have in place and to think about, but it's one of those things that's so easy to kind of put aside and not think about and just continue to put it off. But for my practice, yes, I do think that that's certainly something very important for people to consider.
Yeah, well, and talk a little bit about when we say estate planning, what are the key documents that we need to have done?
Yeah, often conversations that I have with clients or prospective clients, they typically start off something along the lines of, I think I need a will, or I have a will, but I haven't seen it or touched it in 25 years. I probably need to update it. And of course I say, great, let's talk about that. And that's very important. But I then get into very quickly conversation and a little bit of education. It's not for me to tell them entirely what they need for their family, because their circumstances are going to be different than the next client. But I quickly get into a conversation about what I refer to as the big four of estate planning.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is the will, or in some cases a trust, depending on what a person's needs and goals are for avoiding probate or something like that. As I call it, that's just one piece of the puzzle. And that's the part that people generally start the conversation on. And it deals more specifically with what happens to my stuff after I pass away.
Right.
How do I get it there in the cleanest way possible? Who's going to be responsible for wrapping things up, so to speak. But as I sometimes say, as bad as death is, it's a one-time thing, and then I'm no longer here, and it's for my family to have to deal with those things. But the other three pieces of this puzzle that I try to clue people in on, that are equally as important but in different ways, are the durable power of attorney,
okay,
or a financial power of attorney, the advance directive for health care, and that document's made up actually of two pieces. That's your living will and your health care proxy, and then the HIPAA authorization. And so each of those play a different role while we're still alive, because sometimes we just need extra help.
Right.
With managing finances or managing medical care or having access to medical records and, be able to talk to doctors. But sometimes people have no other choice because of incapacity or Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. And they have to have extra help. And so when I have this conversation about, and it's easy to think of them as documents, but they're, again, my way of looking at it, they're just different pieces of this overall puzzle. Because incapacity could last for days, weeks, or decades. And so having something in place where a family member or loved one can manage those things if I can't do it for myself are so important.
Yes, absolutely. Well, talk about when people think about, okay, I need to have all four of these things done, as far as how much time it's going to take them.
Right.
How does that work?
I try to make it as easy and as painless as possible. We will have an initial conversation, of course, gather information about what their specific situation is for their family. It'll be entirely different, of course, if you've got a young individual who's single, or a young married couple, maybe their first child, was just recently born, or more seasoned folks, kind of like myself. I guess I fit into that category now. And I've got businesses, or maybe a blended family, children from a prior marriage. So the circumstances will be different from all these situations. But the starting point is we have conversations about what their needs are. I send a questionnaire to them that collects information that I need to prepare these various documents. And then I prepare the documents, send the draft to them to review, and then we have the signing ceremony, if you will,
Yeah.
to be able to meet and talk about these various things. So work on behalf of the client is mainly gathering the information for that questionnaire.
Okay.
After that, the work really falls back to me.
Okay.
So again, I try to help them in any way that they need. I try to make it as simple for them as I can, but there is a little bit of homework that each client still has to do as well.
Yeah, but once you've done it, you can have that peace of mind, right?
Exactly,
You know?
exactly.
And I think you pointed out too, as far as like whether you're a young adult or a senior adult, this is really important to address, right?
It really is. And so a lot of times when I'm having conversations with a prospective client, they will think something along the lines of, oh, I don't have a lot of assets. This is not something I need to worry about. Well, part of that conversation then is, do you have young children, that are minors? Because if so, and something happens to you and your spouse, who would take care of those kids? Or, are you buying or renting a home? Or bank accounts will still have to be taken care of after somebody passes away. So without some of these just basic things in place, it's going to make the process of getting those assets where you want them to go a whole lot harder and a whole lot more expensive, that could have been avoided.
For sure. Well, we're here in Columbiana, and this is really home for you, right? And it's the home base for your business as well.
It is home base for me, and it is home for me. So I was born actually in Columbiana. I grew up here and graduated high school here. Shortly after graduating high school, I moved away. I was in the military for a number of years, and then all around after that, lived all around. So I recently moved back to Columbiana, back to the hometown, not quite a year and a half ago. Loving the opportunity to reconnect with my hometown, reconnect with old friends and family, make new friends, of course, and just be a part of my home community and being able to give back to where I grew up.
For sure. And so, I mean, I know that you serve families here in Columbiana, but the way your practice is set up, you really can work with families all over Alabama, right? Is that
I
how it
do.
works?
So I'm licensed in Alabama only, and I can help families or just people anywhere throughout the state. And again, this is part of where I've kind of structured my practice a little different than I think a lot of practices do. I was a financial advisor before going to law school. I've done a lot of different things. And so I was used to going and meeting with people, in their homes, at their work, just different places. And I continue to do that. I tell people sometimes I'm the lawyer that makes house calls.
There you go.
And so depending on where they live, of course, I will go meet with them at a place that's convenient. I use technology. Even before COVID came along, I was using technology to have virtual meetings. It's so hard. Everybody's so busy, and especially if they have kids and they've got work and they've got different schedules. The virtual meetings is a great way to be able to meet at a time that's easier and more convenient for everybody. And then when we need to meet in person, of course, that we can.
Yeah.
So yes, I've purposefully have structured things a little different to either use technology to meet in person here in town or to just meet in other places when that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for taking time to talk with us. And if you'd like to learn more about Carden Legal Services, visit their website. You can also email Grady
Yes, of
or
course.
give him a call.